Hello and welcome to part two of the spoiler review for Winds and Truth, and where we'll be going through like the last few handful of characters and what I kind of thought of their storylines, sort of the main characters basically, and how I felt about it. So we're gonna be beginning with Shallan, and in general, I loved her story this time. It's very much a journey before destination because I just like what she goes through. Mainly, I'm going to talk about the fact her wedding day reenactment. I think that is pretty much the pinnacle of her story in this one, where she sees her mom. And in general, you get a couple of hints before that when the heroes are gathered, she's like, "I can't be around them. I can't be around them." And you're like, "Okay, I mean, I can." We all kind of knew, right? That was gonna happen. We all kind of suspected, if you read anything, that that's her mom. But yeah, she meets her mom, and in the vision, and I really like that chapter. Firstly, I like that Shallan's like, I don't really forgive you, but I will say it so that we can begin moving towards it. Like she says like I don't like really forgive her fully in my heart. Because when you think about Shallan's mom was insane. She was gonna send her daughter off to eternal damnation. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like a long time to me. It's. Have you ever waited in line in like to get your driver license renewed for 20 minutes and that feels like suffering? This is like that, but I don't know, three times as bad, maybe four on a bad day. So it's a lot, this eternal damnation. She was gonna sell her own daughter to it. But to be fair, I cut the heralds tons of slack. I think if you have been suffering for like 7,000 years, I think that we see Ashars like 7,000 years ago they were alive, something like that, and half of it is being tortured. You can forgive them for being how they are. It's just not right that they would be normal. And so when you see it, he's like, I can get why her mom would look for anything to do, including selling her daughter to this fate, where she's like, I think you're the herald, and you can go and I can stay. I don't want to go anymore. So as much as I want to be like, what a kind of mother can do that, the truth is that sort of suffering, it's you can see how someone would break and switch it with their kids. And Shallan understands, she's like, yeah, what you did was horrendous, but it is not without reasons or understanding. And that moment, like that chapter with her remembering Adeline, how she wishes he's fine. Again, her story and Adeline, they're far apart, but they think of each other, is super nice, very sweet. I really like that. And the way that she also is like, my wedding day. I'm glad we saw it, right? Because we didn't see it the first time. We saw like a tiny bit of it. That's it. So I'm glad we got the full experience. That was really nice. And just her seeing her mom was good. I really liked it. I'm a sucker for these parent-kid relationships. Having my own son right now, he's 4 and almost 4. He's like 3 and 10 months and a half, so he's very close to 4. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh, parenting, oh, so good. So that's just how I feel. I didn't care as much about her stalking the Ghostbloods and killing them in the vision. I'll be honest with you. That was always, in my opinion, one of the weaker parts of her character. And then she kills them, and even her sort of like logic where she's like, am I gonna kill every mentor who was in my life? I had my mom, my dad, Merez, the girl behind before him, and I'm like, didn't all four of them try to kill you at some point? I mean, you're gonna have a hard time getting me to care and think that you're doing the wrong thing. It's like your mom, as we talked about, eternal time in the license department. Your dad was crazy, and if he woke up, he was killed. And it was still very tender, not tender, but when she killed him, it's one of the saddest moments, honestly. The other two were trying to kill you, so like it's. I didn't feel like that part of her where she's struggling with these mentor killing stuff. I didn't feel it. I was like, they're all kind of scummy to you, And two of them are your parents, so I can understand the mixed feeling there. I'm like, I get that, but now I get it. I loved it, but the other two are whatever. Like, who cares? I know you care, but should we logically be thinking, oh, poor them? I don't think it at all. And I guess my biggest issue with the Shan story is that while I enjoyed a lot of it, is that I didn't think it mattered so much, right? Renarin already released the Spren, which they were thinking about not finding. They were like, we'll find it and hide it somewhere else. Make sure it doesn't go out. But then Renarin frees it anyway, and you're like, well, if you showed up or you didn't show up, it didn't really matter, right? If you freed her or the other freed them, I guess the way she's freed is different. But in general, Shallan herself, kinda, in my opinion, didn't have an impact on the plot. Kaladin becomes a herald, Dalinar ascends, Adeline protects the one city that they protect. Like everyone kind of does something. Rhaenyra frees the Spren, but she doesn't do much in terms of affecting the world. She herself goes through a lot. If you guys read any sort of Eastern books that are translated, like Japanese books and things, a lot of the books, nothing really happens, but a person internally changes their outlook. I read a bunch of Murakami books about this, like Men Without Women, things like that. And it's usually not much happens, but person inside changes. That's what I felt with Shallan, where the world hasn't changed because of her. Like, it's changed, of course, but she hasn't had an impact on it. But he herself is different. And I like that. Like when the formless plot, when the formless came out, like, oh god, not again with the formless thing. Like, we've been through this. Then she's like, oh, I know where she is. She's this one, and gets it. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, that's really good. Like, that was completely against expectations. That was very good. But overall, best chapter, wedding. Really good. Overall, solid character. If I was saying, like, I like Rhaenyra more than Odium, despite Shallan not having an impact on the world, I liked her story more than Rhaenyra's overall. Just a little bit more, like a little bit, because her emotional chapter was insanely good and tied with Navani's best chapter, which I think you can say are some of the best chapters in the book, even though the rest of the storyline was a bit weaker. Then we're going to go to the Shattered Plains, where you have two plots which are very together in the end, which is Venli and Sigzil, whatever you pronounce him. Obviously, Sigzil... Wait, what the hell? Obviously... I see the email because what the hell? Okay, sorry, email from my bank, but it's just a commercial. Sigzil's story was solid. He comes in, he's like, I don't know if I'm a leader or not. I have to do this. It's tough, and I like that. I like that he's a scientist. I'll be honest... I have a soft spot for that guy, because in Book 3 in Oathkeeper, there was a chapter where he's going with Kaladin, and he's like, yo, are we Dalnor's army or not? Who supplies us? Who pays us? Where do we live? What happens if we may get married? Things like that. And Kaladin doesn't know this, but it's all really important questions. I like that chapter, but what I liked the most was when Kaladin's like, why do you want to be, like, don't you want to be a scholar? You're so good. And he's like, no, I don't want to be a scholar. So he's like, I don't want to just be a scholar. I want to be the first in the sky. And I love that. That was one of my favorite quotes. He's like, I want to be the first in the sky. And that was great. And since then, I've always liked this character. And I like his storyline here, where he's like, yo, we're going to set up some sort of phony defenses, let them fall for that, and then we'll see how it goes. It's a brilliant plan. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, we can't hold it, but we can maybe pull a trick. My original idea was that somehow they'll hold it to the last second, then they bait them, and one guy goes and sits on the throne or something, like capture the flag, where you get in the last second and you put it in, and you're like, oh yeah, I see, it's ours because we put the flag last. That's what I thought, but how he actually had it work with Venli was even better. And of course, his moment where he sacrifices his bond against Moash was great. Like, that was super good. I also thought that was the best because it was the first time. We haven't seen this mechanic before. We have sort of before, but not in the current story, where Blade's coming in. He's like, I renounce it. I renounce my oath. I do not believe in them. And that's not exactly what he said, but the meaning is there. Like, I am not a Knight Radiant, and she suffers because of it. And I thought that was it's really good. And then his friends show up to save him. In general, I think maybe this is the third best storyline after Adeline and the Shinovar. So, I don't know. I really liked it. I thought it was really good overall. I kind of wish at the end his friend wanted to talk to him, because I feel like, yes, someone might have wounded you, but they saved your life. It's like if someone pulls you away from a bus that's about to hit you, but they break your arm in the process, you'll be like, yo, the bus was about to hit you. Like, I'm sorry, but come on, I saved your life. So I didn't like that, but I know, this had to lead to the Sunlit Man and all that, so it's fine, but it's really good. Like, overall, everything was really good. The action, Moash showing up, it was solid. So after Sigzil, we're going to go to Sazeth, which is the viewpoint character. It's kind of the second half of the Shinovar story, which is like kind of very interwoven with the Kaladin story. Anyway, it's the same thing, really. But we get to see his flashbacks, which I liked. I love how in the first chapter of his flashback, or like the second, when they ask him about the rock, what to do, and he's looking at his family, and he's like, they are telling me I have a choice, but in reality, they want me to choose one specific thing. They keep saying that. They're like, we could tell them about and have our whole lives uprooted, or we could move it. what do you think, Suzette? Do you want to move it? Do you want to move it? Do you think we should move it? And I really felt for him for that, where it's like you're given a fake choice, and at the end you find out, oh, they actually just didn't really know what to do, and they were looking for him. And his dad's like, yo, I followed you because I was hoping you would be right. And so this like, I was following you because I hoped you would be right. And that moment of recognizing your parents are people who make mistakes and don't know everything, that was really good. That was really good. And says that saying, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to make choice. I am not a thing. There's a part where he tells Neil, he's like, I am not a thing. I have choices. When he's like, just tell me give me something and I'll be Harold. Just tell me anything. And I really like, again, it's one of the best chapters, the fight with Neil. That's a big part of it. Suzette's emotions going into it. So I loved it. In the end as well, when he fights the fights with the honor bearers one by one, he has like some of these best duels where he's like, oh, I'm Chidmar 2-on-1. Let's see how this goes. Or the first one he's like, can I use my, I'm gonna call it combustion. I don't know what it's called, but can I use it? My Dustbringer ability. He's like, nah. You're gonna hold it. Hold, and then do it now. It's like, it's all good. He has the best action scenes. I loved Adlan's story, but in terms of action, Suzette had the best because it's very 1-versus-1. You can easily follow what's happening. A lot of it emotionally tied and charged. His history is good. Everything is really solid. And since he's the second half or like one half of the Shinovar story with Kaladin, that's why they work so well. That's why this story is elevated. Because it's so much hard to manage two characters, two different ideas in one storyline, whereas Adlan's by himself. So if you wanted a Suzette book, this is good, and I really liked it. I loved everything about it. So not much to add here, except that it was fantastic. In the end, though, I think he thinks that Kaladin's dead. He doesn't know it, and he's very sad about it. I was like, oh, poor guy. I hope he knows soon. I hope we get more Suzette. All right, we're down to the last 3 characters. We're gonna go with Moash next. As much as we sort of expected him to do something, he doesn't really, right? He shows up for like one fight, cuts the link between Sigzil and his Spren, and that's kind of it. He gets those eyes, the crystal eyes instead, so he can see. But overall, he's not very involved. I would say this is his least involved book out of all of them. Right, in Rhythm of War, he shows up. He has a bunch of chapters before it. He is a big moment with the Navine where he's like stands up. He's like, he's like, I killed your son. I'm gonna kill you too, which is like, ugh, so douchey. But he, this one, not much. So yeah, I was just like, it's fine. He doesn't do too much. And Moash, in general, I think that my issue with this character is I never really got the friendship with him and Kaladin. If you look at book 2, I feel like he manipulates Kaladin a lot, tries to. And book 1, he's kind of his biggest enemy. And I know Kaladin's like, he's the only one who doesn't worship me. I'm like, yeah, because he is talking smack about you, Like, he doesn't really like you. He doesn't seem to like you that much. We know he does, like we see it from his chapter. But I never got that feeling that Moash was the Bridge 4 member. I would have loved if the betrayal happened a bit later or something like that. Or we had more chapters with him as friends. Because Bridge 4 for me was Teft, Rock, Sigzil, Lopen, Dabbid, a couple of other people like Scar and Dre. Like, I like these guys. They're Bridge 4, Renerin and Relaine as well. But Moash was always like, okay, if you ask me before his betrayal, who are the top Bridge 4 members, he wouldn't make the top 10 in my list. So he doesn't do much. He's fine. Whatever. I really didn't feel too much. Speaking of characters I didn't feel too much about is Venli. Again, this is another one where I think this is a problem with me, not the character. I was never really invested with the listeners and singers. They're these creatures made of smoke with red eyes and things. I'm like, I don't know. Can they like look a bit like me so I know what they feel like? But in general, the story of the history was pretty cool. How she tries to sort of reintegrate with her society, with the chasm fiends as well, where they're sort of like alliance between them. That's kind of interesting. And the way in the end they do what they wanted, which I love, that they have their own place. The Sharp Plains is theirs now, and they can choose who they want to work with. They had the contract, beautiful. I love that, where they're like, in the end they have a contract. They're like, yo, contract is ours. They gave it to us, therefore it's ours, and we're here at the cliff. So shoo, and they all do shoo. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I like that twist was amazing, but. Venli in general has always been like a little meh to me as a character. But her story was good. I just didn't feel much for her. So it comes off as in that mid-level where it's like, it's okay. We have like Renarin, Shallan, Navani, even Kaladin, so that, like better characters. And beneath we have like Yasna and couple others. Like I guess Dalinar is really in that mid level as well. So Venly's felt the same to me. It's like okay. So that's really my thoughts on it. Again, I'd love some people to tell me what they think because I don't really like they who are more invested, so they give me more perspective. And the last character I want to talk about was Wit. I loved him in the beginning when he shows up and he's like having this discussion with Kaladin and he gives him the flute. The flute turns out to be such a big deal, and he talks to him. And I like that. And he sends like he feels very involved in this one. He sends the two people, like what turns out to be like 5 people, into the spiritual realm. Later on, when Dalinar comes back, he gives him like that final pep talk. And he's the first to recognize that Dalinar did something awesome, which we don't know yet exactly what it is. I'm guessing the shards are going to conflict with each other. We'll find out. But in general, Wit's always been a bit ambiguous. I don't think he had the same "you will be warm" moment that he had before. It's good, but it's kind of like Wit was in some of the earlier books where he's a bit more, in the background, not doing too much. But I still liked him. I thought he was a good addition to the book. I liked seeing how he thought about it in the end. I can't like remember a big instance where he was like super amazing. Maybe I need to read the whole book again. I'm like, ooh. Not that it's bad, it's so long. You look at it, like I have it right next to me so I can like hold it and think about stuff. But yeah, in general, it was a decent Wit book. But it wasn't the biggest deal, I felt. I didn't feel like he came in with those big stories, those big moments that he had before, like when he visits Kaladin in jail, when he sees Shallan as well, and like Oathbringer, and he sits with her. I felt like there was more before that. So this one is just fine. Because this book is more about the bigger Cosmere, but it wasn't executed perfectly, the concept of champions, and since that's kind of Wit's main thing, it was... His relationship with Yasna ended. I was glad about that. I was like, this is not a good pairing. I didn't like it, so I was glad it was over. But yeah, that's my thoughts on what I felt were like the main characters of the books. Moash, some of them were not as main, but I felt like it's good to discuss them anyway. I'm sure there's a lot more, but yeah, this is what I thought. I appreciate the book. I like the book. I will reread it sometime again, but I don't think it's gonna be anytime soon. It's like I'm stormlighted out basically at this point, but I do look forward to the Rock book coming for when it comes out, and I enjoyed my time. Again, being lowest ranked does not mean you're bad. It just means that the other books were better, and that's just how I felt about Rhythm of War, Wind of Truth. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll see you around. Bye bye.